my childhood.
All right, everybody, thank you for listening to Ruin My Childhood, the podcast where we decide if some things are better off left in the past. I'm Mike.
And I'm Kat.
How are you doing today, Kat?
I am fantastic, except that it's way too freaking hot to support life in Los Angeles.
It is very warm indeed. So we're going to be watching Blank Check for this episode, and I'm very excited to watch it. What about you?
I mean, I feel like I might enjoy it, but it's just such like a little boy's movie.
I remember really liking this movie as a kid, like really, really liking it, and we didn't own it, but anytime it did come on TV, we would watch it. And I remember you and I watching this, I want to say about 7 or 8 years ago. Like, I feel like we got it on Netflix back when we were just doing like the discs. So it's been a really long time. I can't remember if we liked it or not this time or that time around. So I'm definitely at least willing to give it another go.
Right. I mean, when I was a kid, I definitely remember really liking this movie and thinking some of the stuff was pretty cool. But I think that rehash of it 7 years ago might have tainted it a little already.
See, I don't remember if I liked it or not. I definitely remember that it's like a pretty cheesy kid movie. I'm not even sure. It might be Disney. I don't know if it's a Disney movie or not.
It felt like Disney.
Like, I definitely remember kid. I don't remember exactly what happens. Like, I know like he almost gets in like an accident or something with like some rich guy, and so the rich guy literally just gives him a blank check, and he writes like $1 million on it. But for some reason, like, he's smart enough that he doesn't want to get caught, so he pretends to be like some millionaire named Macintosh. And then he like buys like a giant house that has like a water slide, and then he just spends a bunch of money, and it's just like all the stuff that you'd want to do if you were a kid and had like unlimited resources, at least in terms of being a child.
Right.
But in terms of like the rest of the plot, like why the bad guy is a bad guy and what he was doing versus
Juice?
Like, what was that?
His henchman Juice?
I don't remember.
I think so.
Yeah, but I don't remember that. Like, I remember he has a friend, but I don't remember, like an adult friend, but I don't remember if it was like his butler or his driver.
That's like when your grandfather introduces you to his new girlfriend. My adult friend.
But I don't remember exactly what his relationship to the kid was. And I definitely remember that, like, there was a female who worked at the bank that, like, the kid had a crush on. A woman.
A female. These females. Female what?
Female human.
Thank you. Or women, Michael.
A woman that, like, I think the kid had a crush on.
You've been hanging out with rappers too much.
Yep.
Professional athletes.
I don't remember exactly like what's going on. Like, I know she comes to the house, like, but I can't tell you exactly like how the plot progresses. Like, I don't remember it enough for that.
Right.
But you're not excited to watch this?
I don't know. I feel like I've seen it recently. I know I haven't. I kind of feel like I watched it last year, but I know that I definitely did not. I can still remember a fair amount of the plot. So
like,
I remember
it'll be like
interesting.
Like, I get these flashes. Like, I definitely remember he's got like a giant like bowling alley in the backyard, but I think he's in like one of those giant balls that you put yourself in. And I remember he had like go-karts and stuff like that. And I think the movie started off in like he goes to like an amusement park for like a birthday party, and he's got like no money. And so he's just like miserable.
I remember being a kid and thinking, 'cause I was just like a screwed up child, like, yeah, this is all fun and games now, but what about when he has to file his taxes? IRS is going to be all over this guy.
You didn't think like that when this movie was like 6 years old.
Seriously did.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No 6-year-old or however old when this movie came out knows about the IRS.
Oh, I definitely knew about the IRS because one time I went to visit Papa Joe and he's like, "Oh, I thought you were the IRS," and I'm like, "What's the IRS?"
Let's just go watch the movie.
You're rude. You don't know my life.
Let's just watch the movie.
Don't tell me what to do, Michael.
You will obey me.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding.
You gonna cook dinner?
What? Yeah, I'm gonna cook dinner tonight.
From Walt Disney Pictures, the last thing Preston Waters expected
Blank check.
was for the bank to cash his check.
Yeah!
Now, the last thing he intends to do
I worked hard to steal that money, and this kid's not gonna get away with it.
is let 3 crooks take the money back.
Whoa! Go!
Disney's Blank Check.
It might be easier just to steal another $1 million.
Rated PG.
All right, so we just watched Blank Check, and it was pretty interesting. Katrina, what did you think about the movie?
I had really low expectations for it holding up, and I thought it was really entertaining, so I wasn't super disappointed, and, you know, there was still some value in it for me. It wasn't a great movie, but I still enjoyed watching it.
Wow, I'm disappointed in you because I found zero value in this movie. I really did not enjoy this movie, so when I watched the movies for this podcast, I grade it basically in 2 different ways. One, the main part is, does it hold up as an adult? Do I still enjoy it as an adult? And then for the movies, for example, like Power Rangers, you know, it's not a very good movie, but I can see why I loved it as a kid, and I could see myself putting that movie in front of, like, our nephews and them liking that movie. So I kind of give it a pass if I think kids today would still like it. And I don't see that with this movie. There were a lot of problems. There was a lot of logic problems, which I get, it's a kid's movie, but there was just some things that were so bad that I could not forgive in this movie.
Hang on, you think kids would not still like this movie?
I think that kids today are slightly smarter than, I don't want to say they're slightly smarter.
They're not smarter,
like,
they're jaded.
They're a little bit jaded, and I think kids today are used to having more material stuff, and I think I don't know, I just think that this took some of the best parts of, like, Home Alone and Richie Rich and did it worse than either of those movies, if that makes sense. Like, for example, at the end of the movie, like, a part that should have been really, really cool is when the bad guys come to get him, and he's using all the toys and stuff that he bought with his $1 million to try to, like, defeat the bad guys, kind of like in Home Alone.
Yeah.
It wasn't as fun or enjoyable as Home Alone.
But that's because you're comparing it to Home Alone.
But I wasn't comparing it to Home Alone until after I saw it, and I was like, well, this came out, 2 years after the second Home Alone, and the same year as Richie Rich, I think, and I just felt like it did it worse than those movies. Like, I felt like it was Disney trying to catch up to those movies.
Interesting.
Did you want to summarize this movie really quick?
All right, so basically this kid is kind of like a melodramatic brat.
Yep.
His parents don't give him an allowance, and he wants money. Like, he is completely money driven. And his older brother, who I forgot existed, he has 2 older brothers, right?
Yes, 2 brothers.
His 2 older brothers both have jobs, so they have money, and they kind of throw it in his face, and he's kind of stuck home because he can't really do anything. So he gets upset at his parents for this, and he talks about how he wishes that he had his own money and his own house and his independence, basically. So he's out and about, there's a general progression where he tries to open a bank account, but he needs $200. And as he's leaving, this criminal who has stolen $1 million, and he's using it as his nest egg now that he's gotten out of prison, runs him over, and he's trying to get away from the cops because the cops are about to show up and he doesn't want to get caught. So he writes a blank check and says, give this to your dad, he'll know what to do with it. So this brat takes the check and decides to fill it out for $1 million and to cash. And so he takes it to the bank, and the teller takes him to the bank manager and just kind of expects the manager to deal with this kid and, talk to him about fraud and all that kind of stuff. But the bank manager is in cahoots with the criminal, and he's expecting this guy named Juice to come for a pickup for $1 million. So he gives the kid the $1 million thinking that this is his signal, and then shenanigans ensue.
Correct.
Yes.
Expertly summarized, Katrina.
I don't do summaries. You can't put me on the spot like that,
great.
dude.
Man, it was really great and just spot on and no filler. It was great.
All filler, no filler.
So the problem that I had with this movie is, like you said, this kid is a brat, and he was basically willing to steal $1 million. So the only reason that this movie, he's not a complete, just terrible person in the movie, is because it happened to be a criminal who got out of prison is the one who he took this money from. But what if this was just he could have still been a jerk, but what if this was just some rich businessman or maybe a guy who owns a small business who may actually have had $1 million in his account that he just screwed over and was willing to steal $1 million from?
I mean, dude ran him over and pretty much committed
a hit and run. He didn't run him over. It was his bike, which is still messed up, but he was trying to pay for the bike. And his bike was not worth $1 million. Like this movie, by the end of the movie, it had no consequences. So he makes up this Macintosh persona to justify having all this money and buying a house and buying all this stuff. And he's pretending to be this kid that Macintosh hired because Macintosh had a terrible childhood. So he wants to see a child.
Which is like super creepy. And it's weird that like all the adults in the movie are super concerned about how does this kid have access to this money and like all this nonsense, but no one is like, is Macintosh touching you?
Right?
Like none of them.
Nobody thinks it's weird. They're just like, oh, look at this kid getting money now. Like
they're kind of
really
jealous
dumb.
of him and his power.
Yeah, it's really
they're like,
weird.
I want to work for Macintosh. I want a slice of that. But they're never like, are you okay? Can we talk about the scope of your work with this mystery man? You know?
And there's just a lot of like dumb coincidences in this movie. So
yeah, that
Preston
really
gets...
bugged me that they're all so connected. It's kind of ridiculous and implausible.
So Preston gets 2 blank checks in this movie. So he gets one from his grandmother, and his father just like was like, oh, I'll give it to you for the same amount. And he's like, well, like why would they not call the grandmother and be like, hey, how much did you want this check for? You did it, you didn't fill out the amount. Now, realistically, she probably would have said $10, $15, $20, and the dad made it for $11, because that was how old he was turning. Like, but why would you not call? And then that gave him the idea later on when he gets a blank check that he can just write in whatever he wants.
Right. They don't make the kid call the grandma to say thank you even.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't even read the card.
Dude,
he doesn't even read the card.
The family is a bunch of jerks. Like, they're jerks straight out the gate. Like, the dad... okay, there's like a sex joke in the first 5 minutes of this movie, and it's basically like the dad is saying something. He says something really inappropriate. He's like, it can teach you everything except how to make love to a woman, or something along those lines. And then the wife is like, basically says that the dad doesn't know what he's doing in bed.
Well, he says, she says, I know what to get him for Christmas this year, or something like that.
Right. Like, why would you make that joke in front of all 3 of your sons in the first place? And then they're sitting at the table when he gets the check from the grandmother. He opens the card, doesn't read the card, just like dumps out the check and throws the card over his shoulder. Like, what a little jerk.
And why would the parents not correct that behavior? Be like, read that card from your grandmother.
The parents don't correct any behavior. I'd be like, you get on your knees and you pick that card up with your teeth.
So basically he goes like, the parts that should have been fun in this movie. So there's like this shopping montage and they go to the mall and, he's buying all this stuff. He's buying like a water slide for the house. He buys go-karts. He buys like 100 TVs. He buys this really cool VR thing.
Wait. I wasn't done talking about the family.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I totally forgot that he had a brother, much less 2 brothers. But I remembered that he had a goldfish.
That's weird.
That is
because the goldfish is in one scene at the very beginning.
Right. I don't know why, but I remember the goldfish, didn't remember the brothers, but the family is just like a bunch of jerks. Like the mom...
Well, they took away his bedroom.
The mom's character has like 0 personality.
Yeah.
She has 0 personality, and so the kid, I mean, the whole situation is just kind of screwed up from
She also cost him $100,000, the mom.
The what?
The mom cost him $100,000. He overpaid on that house by $100,000 because of her.
That's ridiculous. But I mean, the parents, the whole movie, are just talking about the importance of money. And like, there's a scene where the dad is like super concerned. Oh yeah, when he gets
all
run over,
sanctimonious at the end.
When his bike gets like mangled by a vehicle, and he goes home, and they're like, "What did we tell you about taking care of your valuables?" They're not like, did they even tell them that he got hit by a car?
Did they even care?
Right, and they're not at all concerned about how this could have happened to his bike.
And then at the end of the movie, like the whole movie, the dad's talking about how when he was his age, he had a job and made $75 or something like that. And then at the end of the movie, when they're having like the big party, and there's one part of that movie that I did like right before that party scene, but he's talking to the back of a chair, which he thinks Macintosh is sitting in, and he's like, I really want Preston to come home for his birthday. He's always been obsessed with his money lately, and can you please send him home so we can teach him that value?
Where do you think he got it?
Right? And it's like, how can you be so sanctimonious right now, all righteous and everything, when you've been telling him the entire movie, get a job, put money in the bank, you get the interest, all the entire movie. Like, it made no sense for that character.
Well, and the parents are kind of stupid because they keep telling him a penny saved is a penny earned, but like, as far as we can tell, the only income the kid has is birthday money. Like, can you even get a paper route when you're like, what, 10?
I have no idea.
Maybe.
I don't know
possibly.
how it works in Indiana. I think they're supposed to be in Indiana.
I mean, they're probably down with child labor in Indiana.
Yeah, probably. In the 90s?
Probably. Oh, they're
For
probably
sure.
still down with it.
So, they have that scene where they go and buy all the stuff. Like, that should be a scene as a child, like, you could think is pretty cool.
Right.
Like, that would be the part as, you know, if
that
we
was
were
the
to
fun montage.
That was the fun montage. But it was really disjointed, and the way it was edited, it was super quick. Like, you didn't really know what was going on and what he was getting until it showed him, like, assembling it at the end.
Right.
Like, it didn't really have... There was a second, smaller montage of him enjoying some of the stuff, like the go-kart and the bouncing boxing ring and stuff like that.
I did like the driver's character. I feel like it was written for Chris Farley.
Oh, it could have been. And he was probably, like, the only character like... And then we haven't even talked about the love interest in this movie.
Oh, that's so creepy.
There's a creepy love interest. So he goes to the bank that first time to open up an account, and she's like, oh, you need $200, and she's like, come back and see me though when you get that $200. Well, it turns out she's like an FBI agent, and she's like investigating the bank manager because she's pretty sure he's in cahoots with Quigley, which is the villain. Throughout the movie, she's trying to get involved with Macintosh because she thinks that he might be the person who's been taking them. Well, she knows that Macintosh has the stolen money because that money that Quigley stole has like FBI.
They're marked bills.
Yeah, they're marked bills. So she knows that he is involved with that money somehow. So she's trying to get involved. And by the end of the movie, like, she has like a date with Preston because he's like, I'm in charge of all the affairs. Why would she even go on that date?
Right.
And then she acts all, once again, like all righteous when she like turns down a gift from him. But at the end of the movie,
she's like using the poor boy's emotions in a really inappropriate way.
Totally. But then at the end of the movie,
she kisses him.
So she's like, you know, you're kind of cute. Come see me in 10 years. And he goes,
right.
Like, 5 years.
He haggles down to 6.
He haggles down to 6, but then she kisses him on the lips.
Right.
Not a kiss on the cheek or the forehead.
It's so inappropriate.
What the... They also, like, another coincidence, they both wanted the same house, Quigley and Preston. So there was that whole haggling scene over the phone, which was really dumb, because he's, like, typing into, like, a speak and say kind of program into the computer, and then the mom walks by.
Which at that time, I don't think home computers could do that at that time.
I have no idea. It was on a floppy disk, too, so there's not enough storage.
I seriously doubt that. Like, I was playing, like, DuckTales that had 3 different functions.
Right? And then that scene, the mom, like, makes him spend extra money because she happens to walk by and she goes, 300, and then the person's like...
No, because he says he agrees to 200,000, so he's like, I'll go up to 2. And
yeah,
then
but then the
she's
mom says
saying,
300.
I'll be back at 2 o'clock. And then she's like, no, make it 3.
That's right. That's what
Yeah.
it is. So she cost him $100,000. And the other thing
he
is,
deserved that.
This movie does not make sense. So I was looking at it, I'm like, there's no way. As soon as they said that the house was originally going for $150,000, and this was like a mansion that looked like a castle, right?
Right.
So it was going for $150,000. Ultimately, he paid $300,000. And then so I was like, well, that seems pretty low. And then when watching what they spent, there's no way he could have spent that much money. So I went online and looked it up, and a lot of people had a problem with this movie because at the end of the movie, he throws a party for himself and Macintosh because they share the same birthday. And at that party, the one redeeming part of this movie was right before the party when the event planner, she goes, oh, that's my deposit, and takes like $10,000 out of his backpack.
Right, she's
and then,
super pushy.
Oh, super pushy. I mean, and then she goes, you shouldn't carry all this money. People are going to take advantage of you. And then she plans this $100,000 party.
Right.
And there's nobody there. There's no ice cream. There's no pizza.
By the way, played the senior Mrs. Avery on Grey's Anatomy.
Oh.
Yeah.
But basically, in a nutshell, like, he requested, like, there has to be a lot of pizza and ice cream. But she just went and got really expensive foods for adults. And he was really upset. And there's a point where the driver leaves because he sees that he's upset. He goes to go get ice cream for Preston, but he just thinks he's abandoned because people keep telling him, oh, if they're only your friends for the money, then they're not really your friends. So
Right.
he realizes that at that scene, he realizes he has no friends that are children his age. And then he realizes with that party that people are just going to take advantage of him. So he does learn a slight lesson at that
Right.
point. But by the end of the movie, when she goes to collect payment for the party and he only has $300 in his account. Well, to get back to my original point, people online did the research and there's no way that he spent more than $500,000 based off how much, like, you see the pricing of some items and then going online and researching how much these things cost back then. It comes out to like 500,000 and change, and then you can throw on that party 600. He still should have had a couple $100,000 left over.
I guess, but I mean, like, the movie doesn't pretend to show absolutely everything.
No,
that
it
he has
doesn't.
spent his money. Like, you don't know if he's like paying for crazy meals or if he's like tipping people really big.
That's true, but still, to go through another couple $100,000,
I could do
I find it kind of far fetched.
I could
But anyway,
do it.
at the end of the movie, the bad guys come. They realize who he is because they see that little ginger kid, and he tells them who they are. Because that ginger kid was there when his bike got run over. So they like hold this ginger kid over the edge of a roof on a skyscraper.
Oh, dude. No, first, can I just say,
Yes, go ahead.
I remember very clearly that the scene of Juice puking in that dude's car like gave me so much anxiety when I was a kid that I vividly remembered it and rewatched it. It's exactly as I remember.
I don't remember that scene at all. I didn't remember most of this movie.
I'm just so phobic about vomit that scene has haunted me since I was a child.
That's funny. Like, that park scene was also disturbing. So the same scene where Tone Loc threw up, it's because they were chasing him through the park. And throughout the entire time, it's 3 adult men in a car chasing a boy on a bike through a park saying, your butt is mine. Your butt is mine. Your butt is mine. You can't say that to a kid in the park as an adult. You can't do that. If I were to do that, I'd be in jail. I'd be registered as a sex offender immediately.
Yeah, I mean, there was like a lot of gross stuff in this movie. Oh, yeah, like the bank teller, the undercover FBI agent who's the bank teller. And it's weird. Do these people like all live in the same neighborhood? Because
they must have, because they run into each other all the time.
And they roll up behind her, and he tells him to stop because what? Does he recognize her by her butt? Like, he asks the driver to pull, and then immediately the driver like makes some gross comment. He's like, doesn't look so bad from where I'm sitting, or something like that.
But you're right. She was wearing a baseball cap pulled backwards.
Right.
She was wearing like workout clothes.
Her hair was covered, so
how would he have recognized her?
Dead ass.
But she was behind a counter when he saw her the first time. There's no way he could have recognized her.
I don't know. A little pervert. Yeah, that whole relationship with her was super gross. And then they go like dancing around in that fountain, which does look fun if you can get past the fact that there's so much filth in that water.
Man, this kid was just a jerk. Like, he also manipulated his dad too. So like, he was grounded because of the whole bike thing.
His dad was a jerk. So
his dad was a jerk, but there's a point when he made the date to go out with Shay, the bank teller, who's also the FBI agent. And I just dropped my phone, so no more notes for the rest of the episode. So he's grounded because of the whole bike thing, and he like back talked to his parents like, I want my own house, I want to go away. It was like that whole thing in Home Alone where he's like,
in his tirade, his parents don't even bat an eye when he says, I want money to be able to pay someone to knock off my brothers. Like,
that's
what?
Right.
They
can't
don't
say
even
that.
correct that. Like, he says repeatedly, it's even on his list of things that he wants. He wants to hire someone to kill his brothers.
That's right. Yeah, he typed out that list, his birthday list.
Like, what?
Yeah, this kid is messed up. But so at a scene, like, he's dressed up on his suit and he's like, oh, I've got to go out tonight. I've got a function with Mr. McIntosh. And the dad's like, no, you're grounded. And he goes, well, so much for plan 49 or whatever it was. And the dad's like, what did you say? So this kid knew about some investment plan that his dad was making. So he's like, yeah, I told Mr. McIntosh about it and he's really interested in it. But if you don't let me go, like, I'm going to tell him not to do it or something like that.
His dad thinks that he like might make his career.
Right? Like, this kid is so manipulative.
He
and
just
the other thing
toys
that
with everyone
didn't make sense in this movie is if he was grounded, like, did they even notice he was gone the first time? Because when he went shopping and the driver picked him up, it was daytime. But then there was later on, it shows him like hanging out the roof in the middle of the city.
Right.
I don't know what big city is in Indiana because they're in like a suburb, but he's in like a big city. So it had to have been, miles and miles away. But it's nighttime. He also sees Shay at nighttime. So he was gone for presumably 12 plus hours in the middle of summer. I guess it's summer, but then somebody mentions like, why is he not in school? But it didn't seem like any of these kids are in school.
Right.
So when this movie takes place, I don't know. None of it made sense.
Disjointed.
It didn't do anything well. Like, I don't think those montages were long enough for a kid to really enjoy all the stuff that's kind of like, oh, that's cool. I would want some of that stuff. It's also super dated because it's all tube TVs, but I can forgive that.
The clothes. The clothes are hideous.
Yep.
Ugh. Oh, they're
and
the
like
worst.
That child actor wasn't that likable either.
He kind of has the face of a jerk.
Yeah. He's not an enjoyable, like
face.
The character is not redeeming in any way. He's not charming.
Yeah, we hate that kid.
It's the only character that I think is actually likable in this movie is the driver.
I love the driver's tirade about turns of phrase. Like, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Oh, yeah,
there's only one way to skin a cat. And he goes into detail about how you skin an animal.
Because it started, he says like a parable. He said like that they say about the ones with the gold and the, I don't know. That was the only part I liked.
This whole thing is spurred on from, in the beginning of the movie, he goes to an amusement park with his friends. Parents give him enough money for 6 tokens. And all these kids are getting like 20 tokens, 30 tokens, 50 tokens. And he like looks at his and one ride is 6 tokens. So instead,
he's doing all the baby rides.
He squanders his 6 tokens on a bunch of crappy little rides when he could have just like picked the best ride and gone on that one and just kind of like hung back in the crowd for the rest of it. And
well, the other thing is
pretended that he was participating.
His parents made him come to this party because he did not want to go because he does not have any friends.
Right. Because nobody likes him because he's a little
because he's a jerk and I hate him.
All right, so what I liked about this film, the buying stuff montages were great. The whole like fantasy aspect of what I would have purchased as a kid, I think was pretty spot on. I did enjoy the driver quite a bit. I liked how deeply unhappy this child was through the entire film because it was satisfying to watch. Things I didn't like.
That's terrible.
Things I didn't like. Noisy montages. The sound mixing in this film
the sound mixing was terrible.
Atrocious.
From scene to scene, we had to change the volume.
Awful. And that the kid has absolutely 0 consequences at the end of the film.
No, it doesn't. Like, none.
Oh, and I did like that there was Right Said Fred in the soundtrack.
So some of the things that I also didn't like that I haven't mentioned already is at the end when it goes all Home Alone, like he's defending his house or whatever he's doing.
You were really preoccupied with Macaulay Culkin, Michael.
Yep. Macaulay Culkin was a big part of my childhood, all right?
For you?
That part when he goes in the bounce house and he like drops the virtual reality helmet on the guy from who's the mayor in Godzilla, like the banker guy. Mm-hmm. He just like does those weird like dance moves like he's doing the robot and it's like, just take the helmet off. And then Tone Loc, when he's in the batting cage, like, why was he in the batting cage? First off, like, there was no reason for him to be in there, but he's just for some reason in a batting cage. So he starts shooting baseballs at him. And instead of like dodging them or, just running towards the gun to get away from it and, dodging, he dances. He literally does dance moves. And he's like going, like making noises and stuff. That made no sense. Like,
how did these guys not get arrested by the end of the film? Like, just
they did. All of them did.
Well, I mean, like, no, they get arrested at the very end, but like, how did they chase this kid through a park in a car and not get arrested right there? How did they also like dangle that ginger kid over the side of the roof of a building? Well,
this is the 90s. Cell phones weren't really a thing. Cameras weren't like high definition, so it would be hard to like identify someone doing this stuff.
90s were gnarly. But aside from the fact that life was much easier.
I was bored watching this movie. Like, there wasn't enough. Like, there was that one inappropriate joke at the beginning and, like, that one with the driver. Honestly, pretty tame adult jokes.
I think all of the driver scenes made it enjoyable.
I don't know.
The movie sucked, but I still enjoyed watching it.
I don't even know. I doubt this movie even broke 90 minutes, and I felt like it was going on and on and on. It was like a hodgepodge of just parts. Like, somebody went and threw a dart, had a bunch of different things. They're like, this is the scene I want, this is the scene I want. Take this from this movie, put it together and see what we get.
Gotta make that money.
It wasn't very good. Now, granted, Disney live-action movies, even today, Disney live-action movies aren't great. There are a few. Like, there's ones that they put a ton of money in. Like, I think the Wrinkle in Time movie coming out is Disney. I'm not 100% sure on that. Don't quote me. But movies like that, they'll put a ton of money into. But then you've got movies like this, Homeward Bound, and stuff like that are not good movies.
Quince.
Well, Quince was a
Smart
TV
House.
movie. Well, those were TV movies. This was not. This was a major motion picture that went to theaters. And If this was a TV movie, I would have forgiven it a lot more. But this wasn't.
It ruined it for you.
But yeah, I never want to watch this movie again.
I'm indifferent. And like a lot of the ones that I was entertained by are things that I would want to watch with my nephews. I wouldn't want them to watch this because that's a terrible example.
Exactly. I think if we bought this for them, they would maybe watch it the one time and never again. Like, probably. I don't think there's any repeat viewing value to this movie. Okay, I'm done. I hate it.
Jesus. What are we watching next time?
So on our next episode of Ruin My Childhood, we're going to watch the 90s classic Saved by the Bell. We're going to talk about Zach, Screech, AC Slater, and I don't remember any of the other characters' names.
All those chicks with big hair.
Yeah. Tiffany Amber Thiessen.
Woo!
All right. So, Katrina, where can our listeners find you?
I am all over the internet at Katrina Ossity, especially on YouTube. Check me out there.
Yeah, check her out. She's got a lot of great like DIY videos and it's a bunch of vlogs and story time stuff. It's pretty great. Her life is weird. Like, check it out.
You can watch our story time about how we almost got arrested.
Yes, you can. Also, you can check out anything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at MDXpods, and that's where we kind of put all our updates and all our promos for the podcast. And also just check out our other podcast, Remake Rewind, that stars myself and Dustin. And we're going to be announcing a special guest later on this week. We're going to have a special guest on our next episode, and that'll be pretty cool. So check out Remake Rewind as well. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.